Ciao everyone, it's Marchettino, and today we're off for a drive in the new Ford Mustang with the Ecoboost engine. And so I wonder, is it a good compromise considering the huge taxation here in Italy? Well, let's find out. I always have a great time behind the wheel of American cars. I got to drive a couple of times the new Mustang with the 5-liter V8, and it's such a remarkable car to drive. It's good fun. And today I'm driving the version with the 4-liter turbo engine. And I feel like that Ford has made this version mainly for the European market, because here in Europe, especially in Italy, we have a huge taxation towards sports cars. So you realize that here in Italy a 5-liter V8 is quite expensive to maintain. The Mustang with the 4-cylinder turbo engine is quite popular here. You don't get to see many V8 versions around, and so I wonder if this version with a smaller and less noisy engine has the same flavor and fun factor of the V8. Let's talk about the aesthetics, because I love the way this Mustang looks. I mean, black on black, yeah. You can tell that this car has a great presence on the road. And this, being the facelift version, just looking at the new headlights and front bumper, you can tell that this Mustang looks quite sharp and aggressive. So guys, here's the engine bay of the Mustang. It's quite big and there's a lot of empty space because here in the front we have a tiny 2.3 turbo engine. So this is the same engine of the Ford Focus RS, and this being the facelift version of the Mustang, Ford had to detune the engine a little bit in order to respect the very strict laws of homologation. In fact, the power of the previous version was 317 horsepower and now it's 290. The torque has been increased a little bit because from 434 Nm of torque, now we have 440 Nm. And the great thing is that Ford has claimed that even though they reduced the power, they managed to reduce the turbo lag and have a lot more torque in the low range. Let's talk about prices, because here in Italy the V8 version has a price of 48,000 euros. So this one, half the cylinders, half the price? Well, not really. This one, the Ecoboost, has a price of 43,000 euros. It's not that different, but once you live here in Italy and register the car here, you realize that this full-cylinder version is way cheaper to maintain in terms of insurance, annual car tax and fuel consumption. So guys, let me show you quickly the interior of the Mustang. With this new generation, I like the way Ford has built up the quality, because they really wanted to make a product that would have been able to satisfy the European taste. Overall, it's good, but of course, whenever you touch the plastic, the leather, you realize that the quality, the build quality is typically American. But still, I think that over the time, Ford has improved the ride quality very much. So the version I'm driving is fitted with the 10-speed automatic transmission. Here we have the tiny plastic pedals behind the steering wheel. I already got to test this transmission on the 5-liter V8 and I have to say it's pretty good. If you want to be more old style, you can go also for the 6-speed manual transmission. So guys, let's start the test drive and let's get straight to the point. I'll be honest, I've always been quite skeptical about the Ecoboost version of the Mustang because, you know, everyone thinks that the pony car, the muscle car, must have a proper old-style, noisy V8 engine. As I said, I think that this version has been designed mainly to get around the huge taxation we have here in Europe. And I wonder if getting a Mustang with half the cylinders is actually a good compromise when it comes to the flavor of owning a muscle car and having a great time behind the wheel. So right now we're driving in normal mode. Even in this setting, you realize that this is a car you can actually daily drive it. In Italy, if you drive in a big city, it's a problem because this car is huge. The suspension is pretty comfy. I love the seats because they're very soft and smooth. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. There's not enough space for both. Okay. Grazie. So the steering wheel is quite smooth, so does the throttle, which is very delicate. We're driving gently and you feel like this car is electric or what? Well, not really, because as soon as you smash the foot on the throttle, there it is. This is the sound of the full-cylinder turbo engine. Well, actually, the owner of this car did the right choice, because this is not stock. He has done the two most important things you have to do if you're planning to buy a Mustang full-cylinder. First thing, the exhaust, because it doesn't sound like a V8, but still, I think this is pretty good. The owner has decided to fit an American exhaust, a MagnaFlow. Stock, I think it sounds ridiculous, but with this kind of exhaust, I think the situation has been improved. Of course, it doesn't sound ferocious like the V8, but still, I think it's not bad at all. Especially at low revs, it's quite deep, and even though it doesn't have the roll of the American V8, this car really grabs the attention. And second thing, as I said, this car doesn't have the same power and performance of the V8, but still, being turbo, there's a pretty good room of improvement, and so the owner has decided to refresh the ECU. We don't know exactly the amount of power right now, but let's engage sport mode and let's see what this car is capable to do. Did you see that? Even though it has a tiny full-cylinder engine, you have to be careful, because this car tends to be rather tail-happy. Traction control is still on, but still, did you see how much this car was sliding? In this setting, the throttle is way more responsive, so does the steering wheel, which is a very good thing, because did you see how much this car loves to slide? You always have to be careful. So, as much as I love the manual gearbox in general, especially the one of the Mustang, I think it's really nicely done. I think that this 10-speed automatic transmission is fairly good, and I think it's the right gearbox for this version with the full cylinder, because this transmission is pretty fast and fluid, especially on the upshift. And this allows to have a constant acceleration and power delivery, even though you have a tiny turbo lag at low revs. This engine is not powerful and ready to deliver all the power anytime like the V8. So it's very good to have a transmission that offers this continuous power delivery. I only wish the shift down were slightly moving, because once you press the shift down pedal, it takes a moment to realize that you want to shift down. But still, I think that overall it's a pretty good transmission. And you can bet that after all, I think the performance on the four-cylinder Mustang are rather good. I mean, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is claimed 5.8 seconds, and this one with the ECU flash, I think it's slightly quicker. Top speed is not that impressive, because it's 233 kilometers per hour. Okay guys, finally we've found a wider road, and now let's start to push and play with the Mustang. Traction control light keeps blipping, but it's not enough because the rear slides anyway. You don't even need to redline the engine, because in the low and mid-range you have plenty of torque, and with this 10-speed transmission you keep changing gears, and yet the engine is always right there to offer a good amount of power. There's no need to redline it, because around 6,000 RPMs you feel like the engine doesn't have anything more to offer, so there's no need to redline it. That's all. Lots of tight corners and hairpins here, so now let's switch to track mode. Let's see what this car is capable to do. So yeah, as you can see, this car tends to be tail happy, even though it doesn't have a V8, but I have to say, compared to the V8 version, this one is more user-friendly. It's easier to drive. This version of the Mustang, I think it has the right amount of power to enjoy for most drivers, especially those that don't have great driving skills. Because let's face it, if you dare to tune the electronics off, this amount of power is good enough to end in trouble. And with a cab weight of about 1,737 kilo to carry, how does it feel like around these corners and hairpins? You tend to feel the weight when you smash the foot on the brakes, because as I said at the beginning of the video, I think these brakes aren't enough. It's not about the performance, it's about the weight. Because if you start to push around the road like this, after like 10-15 minutes, you start to feel the fading. You realize that you want more from the brakes, the brake pedal starts to get hard and you don't feel a great braking power anymore. So far, I'm positively impressed by the engine, not so much about the brakes. I think the biggest letdown in this version is of course the soundtrack. I think full cylinder with a good aftermarket exhaust, it sounds good. Of course it's not ferocious and evil like the V8, but overall, just think about it. In Europe, the taxation is very high. I think that every owner of a full cylinder Mustang would love to have a V8, but this being a compromise, after having driven it, I feel like that a full cylinder version with exhaust, ECU refresh, I think it's a good compromise, because even though it's heavy, I think that it's a car that makes you experience a pleasant and fun driving experience around the road like this. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more. And as always, thanks for watching. Ciao!